So when you talk to your customers, do you talk to them about a proactive approach versus a reactive approach to monitoring HVAC systems? Is that part of the conversation you have with your customers?
Absolutely. I mean, that has to be part of it, John, because to Bob's point, there's less people in the industry. And if at the end of the day we're always fighting fires, it's really difficult to provide the outcomes. And so we found with the clients where we're using remote-based monitoring services, especially in the higher ed and healthcare environments, that's been a significant game changer for us in being able to address the issue before it becomes an issue, quite honestly. Simple items that may not even get noticed by an end user, where you may have simultaneous heating and cooling of a VAV box, where the space may or may not be maybe within comfort of sorts. But at the end of the day, the fault detection recognizes that we have a hot water control valve that's stuck, right? Or an actuator not working or something of that nature. And if we can pick that up before it becomes a hot or cold call, and we can address it with the resources we have in a proactive manner, now we're providing an outcome, right? So that's been our mantra the last several years as we've implemented those strategies in those systems, and really to mitigate some of the issues that Bob brought up relative to manpower. I don't see that changing anytime soon. We have to work a little smarter, not harder, right? So no, absolutely. That's part of, from an asset management standpoint that Bernhard executes, that's one of our key items that we have to have as a tool in our toolbox.
Yeah, agreed. The other thing that we are seeing is the what we call limits to growth. That is, a lot of HVAC companies. There's some very, very large nationals, who are in every city across the U.S. and Canada. But then you've got a huge number that are mom and pop type size companies. Maybe small organizations of 1 to 8 service techs and a small number of trucks. Now, how does that business owner grow their business? If they want to grow their business, typically they have to buy another truck, equip it with tools, and they have to go out and find somebody to put in that truck that they can put on the road. So they have to put this huge investment out before they can start taking on new customers. And that is very limiting, especially if you get into the Northeast U.S. where there's a lot of delivered fuels. There's a lot of oil heat on Long Island and Massachusetts, and that ties into the Internet of Things as well. Before you can take on another 5,000 customers, you got to buy another truck, and you got to put a person in it and fill it full of oil or propane or whatever the case might be. The idea of using technology like we're discussing today allows companies to grow their business without adding equipment, without adding personnel, because the equipment is just terribly expensive and the personnel just can't be found. So by using technology, now you can manage your customers in a more timely fashion, get things organized. Far more efficiencies can be found, having your expensive people spending less time on the interstate trying to get between calls and more time, in the attic, in the basement, or where in the equipment room, fixing the equipment, getting in, getting out, and billing the customer. So when we look at the word proactive, we look at it proactive from equipment maintenance perspective, which we were just discussing, but also proactive in business growth. That is, how do you grow your business? You got to think ahead, and technology is the way to grow your business. If you're in the HVAC service industry, I would suppose other industries as well. So yeah, that's something we think is very important. And then the other thing is in residential. I don't know if this is the case in your industry, your part of the market, but in residential, the relationship between the HVAC service company and the homeowner is so spotty. That is, it happens once every 5 to 6 years or so. There's a problem. They call in for help. The service company shows up. They do their work. They move on. But there's no ongoing relationship. And so there's no opportunity to build trust, that trust-based relationship between the consumer and the service company and the provider. The idea then is that when it's time for that homeowner to put in a new HVAC system, who do they call? Well, right now, they've forgotten about that person that was in their basement 5 years ago. Now what they're doing is they're Googling, they're asking friends and family, who did you use to put in your HVAC system? The idea of an Internet of Things relationship is that the service company is connected to the homeowner on an ongoing basis. And that is, they have not a daily relationship, but a monthly relationship in the form of reports or custom apps, that type of thing, so that the homeowner or the light commercial customer knows who their service provider is. And when it comes time to get new equipment, they've already got that trust relationship with Acme HVAC or whomever is their service provider. And then the benefit of our type of technology that we've been discussing here is that when it comes time for a new HVAC system, whether it's a boiler, heat pump, air conditioning, furnace, whatever the case might be, now the service company has got actionable historical data. They can help pull up the data and say, what did this house actually, or this light commercial establishment, what did they actually burn through in cooling costs and heating costs over the last 1, 2, 3 years while we've been monitoring? And let's see what we can really put into this. One of the things we've found in the early adopters of our technology was that most heating systems, forced air heating systems, are grossly oversized. My own home has a 60,000 BTU gas furnace in it, and it's almost ready for replacement. But with the benefit of the IoT technology that we're using on it, we're able to see that the worst winter, and we're in Canada, the worst day in February, we burnt through 20,000 BTUs in an hour. My furnace is already 300% too big. So I can see now that a heat pump with maybe electric heat backup would be far more than adequate for our house. So what we're saying is that proactive has got different flavors to it. There's proactive on repairs, proactive on preventive maintenance. Then there's proactive in growing your business and proactive in getting the sale 3, 4, 5 years down the road when it's time for new equipment. Yeah. Back to the original question about the proactive versus reactive. I'm assuming you guys are doing this as well, but one of the things that we find is really appealing and actually blows the mind of our customer base is the idea of being able to remotely diagnose equipment, and that is remotely activate. And, before you even roll a truck, before you even put an expensive person in a truck with a set of tools, try to figure out what's wrong before you deploy somebody. And to be able to sit down, either you sit down to a desktop computer and, activate the equipment, try to change some of the variables remotely, or in our case, the service techs, if it's a small organization, maybe the business owner, him or herself, is, on the road in a truck. And we like to say they can be at the drive-through, with a coffee in one hand and run a diagnostic test on one of their customers' homes and get a really good idea of what's wrong. And they can see the equipment, they can see, it's a 10 microfarad capacitor on a blower, and I'm pretty sure I don't have that in the truck. So they can stop at the wholesaler on the way through to that home, make sure they've got the part on the truck. And that's another, this word proactive that we've been talking about, there's so many ways of slicing that word up and looking at it from so many perspectives. Proactive in making sure you've got the right parts, you know what you're doing before you get there, you've got the right person being deployed, just reducing your overall costs of doing your business. It's huge.